Martin Archer is next on my list here, and he says, most liked question from last week. Well, congratulations. I'm sorry I didn't get any questions last week. Did you see the monk debate with Jordan Peterson, and why the hell aren't you debating leftists all the time like he is? You do just as good as in jobs of arguing points, plus you have more charm and much more of a sense of humor than he possesses. Thank you, Martin. I just don't know if I have the thickness of skin, to be honest with you. I do have to say that one time when I was just completely blindsided by Malibu Trotsky, I was quite shocked at the inner calm that came over me. That was really quite a surprise. Really, really very calm about that. I'd like to do it on a panel. I'll be perfectly honest with you. I would be doing a lot more of it, except that the audience bias is almost insurmountable. In other words, if I were to go on the Bill Maher show, I feel like I could not only handle Bill Maher, I feel like I could handle Bill Maher plus the other four, however many people there are there. But if everything you say gets jeered and laughed at by the audience, and everything they say gets thunderous applause, you can't. It's a very difficult social proof headwind to fight. Because it reinforces the beliefs that these people had. So if it were to be an actual debate, under controlled circumstances, which, like a presidential debate or something, they could give my liberal opponent the answers to all the questions. I don't care. We're gonna wipe the floor with them. I should be doing more of it. The whole Jordan Peterson phenomenon is amazing. I think that Jordan Peterson is largely successful because he's not using quite so political terms. He's not really talking about Republicans, Democrats, liberals, conservatives. He's talking about people as a psychologist that disarms a lot of people, gets them out of their trenches. But he's also just a very even-tempered fellow, and he just seems imperturbable. I mean, nothing seems to get to him. There are people like that who are able to maintain that, just walk into this monkey cage of screaming social justice warriors and just simply, endure it and then respond. And so there are some people with thick skin, and then there are people like Andrew Breitbart, and I perceive Ben Shapiro to be this way, and certainly Milo is, although he's pretty much vanished, who actually seem to like the fight. They seem to enjoy it, and I do not enjoy it at all. I'm pretty good at it, but it's not fun for me. A controlled debate, with a moderator who is relatively impartial, and a certain amount of time and structure, rebuttal time and so on. I think that I would definitely be a part of. But in any event, I'm not very willing to walk into the Bill Maher show and just. It's not discouraging. It's not embarrassing. It's not even really. I was going to say it's not even so much unpleasant as it's just frustrating. It's like you watch these people reinforcing all of their beliefs for the stupidest reasons, Somebody gets, they make some kind of simple, easy to do comment, like, at least, the people in Africa are building our cell phones for 2 cents an hour. I'd like to live in a world where we have at least the decency to make sure that doesn't happen. And now, now I have to say, okay, let's just slow down. 2 cents an hour is what they're working for, whatever the number actually is. So why are they working for 2 cents an hour? It's because people are pushing other people out of the way to work in these horrible conditions for this terrible wage, because it's the best work there. You see? It's the best work there. And I was watching just briefly, just as another one of these wandering asides that we always get off on, this whole purpose of this show. I was watching this documentary on what they called the most toxic dump in the world or something. And basically what it was, I want to say it's in Ghana, in Africa. And it's where all the world's electronics get dumped. And there are people who simply go through these garbage piles and are pulling out the copper and whatever parts that they're looking for. And when they come to plastic, they just set it on fire. So there are these burning little, clusters of burning plastics and heavy metals and all the rest. And they say it's a tremendously toxic environment and exceedingly unpleasant. And here's the thing. It is exceedingly unpleasant. And I don't like seeing people doing this kind of work. But the thing that struck me the most watching this was, this is miserable, but I would rather be doing this than doing what my personal ancestors were doing 4 or 5 generations ago, which is either working in a textile mill or in a homemade coal mine. What did I see recently about mining? Somebody just crawling in this mine. My family is coal miners back to as far as we could tell. Coal miners and then textile workers, cotton carders. I've mentioned this many times. For those of you who may be relatively new, wouldn't be my father, my grandfather, my great-great-great-great-grandfather, somewhere around in there. He and his father, and I think his father, were all working in a textile mill, and they were cotton carders. And what a cotton carder does is he prepares the cotton for being spun into thread. The thread is then used, obviously, to make the cloth, and that's a big part of the Northern English economy for hundreds of years. But a cotton carder is somebody who they basically hand a lump of cotton, just a clump of cotton about the size of a baseball, I guess, raw cotton. And a cotton carder has 2 wooden boards. They're about, this big paddles. Primitive leather strap on both sides so they can hold these paddles like this. And then there are these wire hooks, very thin wire hooks, kind of like the wire brushes you see sometimes for pets and so on. So they've got these 2 panels, one on each hand with wire hooks, and somebody hands them a piece of cotton and they do this. And what they're doing is they're aligning the strands and they're getting the seeds out. And it takes, I don't know how long it takes to do one of these things, several minutes anyway. And then they hand that off to the next person who takes it over to be spun into thread, and then somebody else gives them another piece of cotton, and they did that 10 hours a day, 6 days a week for 100 years. Family members who were fathers of 11 children, 9 children, waking up in the morning, and first thing you do is break the ice on the bowl of water in your room, so you can wash your face. And while cotton carding and working in a textile mill was not only mind-numbing and dangerous, it was also freezing in there. They decided they didn't want to heat that place because that cost money. So, and you started working when you were 6. These are my ancestors we're talking about. And coal mining was much worse. Aside from the fact that you're very likely to be killed in a cave-in, because it wasn't bracing. I mean, people had in Wigham. I can't remember which one is it's the one that's not the police chief. Wigham. So it's Wigan. Anyway, I think somebody said there was something like 8,000 coal mines within a 1 or 2 mile radius of the center of this town, because people would simply go out into their backyard and start digging down so they could get some coal so they wouldn't freeze to death in the wintertime. And that's not a pleasant experience, mining coal under any circumstances. And under those circumstances, it meant you would die of black lung disease, or you take a bath once a week and you get the hot water, and by the time you're done, it's inky black, and then goes your wife, then all the kids, and last goes the baby. And by the time the baby's being washed, the bath water is so black and dark and inky that you run the risk of throwing the baby out with the bath water. So here's my point, though. I saw these people in 2017 doing nasty work. And I don't like that they're doing nasty work, and I don't say, hey, too bad for them that they're doing nasty work. I would like it if they weren't doing nasty work. But what strikes me is they're doing work that is less nasty than my ancestors did. And the problem seems to be that my ancestors had some kind of vision of a better world, that this sacrifice would improve. And when I say this sacrifice, I'm talking about the sacrifice of their lives. There's something about certain people or cultures, I don't know what it is, but there are certainly, many of you as well, I know, there's a particular kind of a human thought process that says, I'm born into this miserable world and I'm going to work hard in this miserable world. It's miserable work and I'm going to have to work hard just to feed myself. But I'm going to do that and enough to feed another person. And then the two of us are going to have 11 children. I'm going to have to work hard enough to feed them. And furthermore, I'm going to have to work hard enough to feed them and save enough money so that there's a chance they might go to school someday. What I'm saying is, what seems to be different is that when my family was coal miners, they were working towards a day when they wouldn't have to be coal miners. They were working towards a day when they would have the unspeakable luxury, unimaginable pleasure of working in a textile mill. So they did that for 4 generations. And then I think they were plumbers for 2 generations. Then my grandfather made an enormous leap. He was a telephone lineman. He was hanging telephone lines around 1912 when we came over here, 15? I've forgotten. But that was a bleeding edge technology job, hanging telephone lines in the early 1900s. And then after that, it was hotel manager and then internet celebrity. So the de-evolution continues apace. Let's see.